This evening what we're going to talk about is feasibility studies. Feasibility studies, particularly in the context of commercialization projects. We spoke in our lectures on project management about the fact that organizations like to split their new projects into stages. Typically they'll have an ideas stage early on in the process. People are coming up with new ideas. People doing perhaps vacuum fume cupboard experiments, proof of principle experiments. At the far end, you have the full project process. You have the research grants, you have the feasibility study grants, you have something like a Scottish Enterprise proof of concept proposal, something like a BBSRC follow-on fund. And we're talking hundreds of thousands of pounds. I mentioned in the lecture on finance that typically to employ one qualified postgraduate in a commercial organization, put that postgraduate in a decent lab somewhere in this country is going to cost the employer roughly £100,000 a year in combined salary, employment costs and building costs. Right? So things get expensive when you move from the idea stage to a full development project. So it only seems sensible to do something in between to actually decide which of the ideas will turn into full development projects. And that something in between is called a feasibility study. I like to think of it as going from a creative mindset when we invent something, when we invent an interesting piece of technology, when we have a further bit of illumination that says, aha, with this interesting technology I can change people's lives, I can save them a lot of money, I can save them a lot of hassle. We switch from that mindset, which is creative, to a mindset which is, this is a great idea, but before I spend 100, 200, 500,000 pounds on it, I really want to check it as much as I can. Right? So I'm going to do my best to do a little study that is determined to kill the project. I'm determined to find failure factors. And if I do that well and systematically and the project still survives, then I have a pretty robust business case. And so that's what we try to do in a feasibility study. I don't know if you know where the phrase devil's advocate comes from. When someone is proposed for sainthood, they send a couple of ministers along, and one of them is to work with the saint and try to find evidence, and the other, the devil's advocate, is to try to find terrible things about the person that they're contemplating making a saint. So a feasibility study is we are trying to be a devil's advocate. We're trying to find all the reasons the project might not work. Technical reasons, commercial reasons, regulatory reasons. And what we hope will generate will be some systematic arguments. And if we do think the project will work, it will actually give us some targets. It will give us some of the major risks, some of the things to worry about, and hopefully we should be able to generate some kind of project flowchart from it. What kind of things might be in your feasibility study? And if you're an organization that does a lot of these, then it's worthwhile doing the same things in different feasibility studies over and over again. Well, thinking about what we've talked about in the other lectures, we should be able to describe some kind of benefit from our project. Who might be the users? What do they get now? Why would it be better if our invention came to fruition? What benefits or advantages they get from our technology? Second one, business model. What are we actually going to sell? Are we going to sell a physical product? Are we going to deliver a service? And who will we actually deliver it to? If it's a medical application, will it go straight to patients? Will it go to hospitals? Will it go to clinics? Who will make the buying decision? Will it be a manager? Will it be a doctor? Intellectual property. Will we have any? Will someone else have any? Does that other person's intellectual property, their patents, stop us doing anything? That's something that's pretty important to find out pretty early on. Competitors. Who are they? Are we planning on competing with someone big, or are we planning on competing with a small outfit, a startup, a spin-out, somewhere around the world? What kind of size are they? What's the most we could afford to spend on the development? You know, is this a 5,000 man-hour development? Is this a 50,000 man-hour development? What's the most we could ever make if all the possible customers bought our product or service? Those are the kind of questions that we're trying to ask. Can we make the product? Can we deliver the service? What are the main technical targets? How good does it have to be? Are there any ergonomics? Are there any human factors? Can we identify at this stage something that would cause us to stop the project? Apart from laziness and incompetence, which is a given, is there anything which would cause us to stop the project which actually wouldn't be our fault, right? If you think about it, that's a pretty important thing to identify early on. And it's not just about listing all the things that might or might not happen, right? It's a question of identifying issues and then discussing them intelligently. Right? A feasibility study should identify an issue affecting the project. So secondary tumours could be as small as 1 millimetre. Can we reliably get enough FDG, which is a chemical, into them to detect them? Right? That would be an issue. What's the impact of the issue? Well, oncologists, who are our target market, say they wouldn't use positron tomography unless the sensitivity was enough to reduce false negatives to something like 1 in 100,000. Okay? That's an analysis of how important the issue might be. And ideally, what you should then do is propose some actions to actually come up with a way of mitigating the risk. Okay, well, we've got 2 ideas about this. We've got 2 potential technical solutions. We'll set up 2 technical sub-projects to address these things. If you go ahead with the project, and if you manage the project under certain stage gate mechanisms, or something like Prince2, what they then get you to do is come back and revisit those issues, those main risks at every stage end meeting, just to review where you are. So let's have a look at some real examples. And as I think I might have intimated in that last slide, the example I want to discuss is all about the chemicals that are used in positron tomography. Positron tomography is a form of imaging, like MRI. The difference is that it gets images from a radiochemical that you ingest. The radiochemical is very often a labeled form of glucose, a fluorine glucose. And the fluorine is a beta emitter, and you get radiation coming out of the body which can be imaged by the detectors. That's the ring on the left-hand picture. Because you're putting in a glucose, right? Glucose is a chemical that's involved in metabolism. So the glucose tends to concentrate in areas of the body where metabolism is high. Obviously, there's quite a lot of it in the liver. You can do really quite clever things. You can see whether there is metabolic activity in the brain of a patient who is otherwise in a coma. You can tell whether they're brain dead or not. The big potential application, though, is detecting tumours, because at a tumour, you have, by definition, fast metabolic activity. So your glucose tends to concentrate there, so your radio-labeled glucose tends to concentrate there, and you tend to be able to get pictures of tumours. In theory, pictures of tumours at a much earlier stage than feeling them, and also in theory, because you can measure the metabolic activity, you can tell which bits of the tumour are alive or not. So if you give someone a chemical or a radio treatment and then give them positron tomography, you can actually see whether it has killed some of the cancer cells. In other situations, physicians routinely do invasive surgery to detect tumours, especially secondary tumours, And if we could develop a tomography method, it's non-invasive. It saves the patient a lot of grief. It actually saves a lot of costs to the hospital. It costs money to have someone in a hospital bed overnight. So there is a project with lots of potential benefits. Yeah. We could think of lots of good reasons to do it, and we might be tempted just to apply for the grant, just to talk to our bosses at the medical equipment company and say, let's spend £500,000 doing this. Or we could just think hard about it before we start. Okay? So what kind of things might we want to talk about? Well, okay, you're presenting this to us as a commercial project. So how about some background commercial information? How many hospitals are there that use positron tomography? How many hospitals actually are there in the country with cancer units? I mean, is it 5? Is it 50? Is it 500? How many of those have positron tomography equipment? How much of this chemical do they consume? If we've got a better way of making it, you know, does that mean that we can make it much more cheaply? Does that mean we can make more margin? Does that mean that more people will want it? What would be the impact? Yeah. How might they use it if it was easier to make? Who actually buys the stuff at the moment? Is it the hospital? Is there a buying department? Is it the doctor? Is it a specialist radiochemist? Who's actually buying it? Who's got the money in the cancer business? Is it the NHS? Actually, probably not. Is it the universities? Probably not. Where's the big money in the cancer business? The big money is with the big cancer charities. And all the Cancer Research Campaign, all these people. They are the major funders of work into cancer. Might it be a good idea to talk to them to see what they think? It might be, mightn't it? Yeah? It might be a very good idea if they really hate the idea. If they really hate the idea, that's probably a useful thing to know. If they really love it, then they are people with money, aren't they? What are the cost savings? Okay, if we don't do this diagnostic surgery, what does that save people? In other words, what's the cost of the alternative treatment? Okay, I mentioned the business model. Things like, do we sell chemical precursors? Do we sell kits for making the stuff? Do we offer an on-site service for customers? Do we sell direct to a hospital, or do we sell to third parties? There are organizations, one of them is called, I think it's Alliance Biochem, that provide a service for hospitals who don't have an MRI. They have an MRI in an Arctic. They drive this big lorry around from hospital to hospital, park it outside, they've got MRI inside it, right? Might they be customers? Do we actually do this all ourselves, or do we partner with another organization? Do we partner with an instrument manufacturer? There are 3 main manufacturers of positron tomography equipment in the world. Do we have to have some kind of cooperation, some kind of license with them? Technical targets. We need to go and have a discussion with the oncologists. We need to find out things like, how big are these tumors? How small are they? Where are they? How reliable does this device have to be before you'd accept our results? Is it okay if we have 99% success rate, or do we need 99.99? And if we get that 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000 wrong, is it better if it's a false positive or a false negative? Is it better to tell someone they have got cancer when they haven't, or that they haven't got cancer when they have? What about other practical things? Some MRI machines are actually very noisy. There's a great, it sounds like a helicopter taking off. They also have massively strong magnetic fields, right? You can't go anywhere near them with a credit card, for example, not to mention a heart pacemaker. Are there any issues like that which could affect us? We're making a chemical. How pure does it need to be? We're making a radiochemical. Are there any particular radiation hazards that we need to address? Any procedures? Process, cost targets. What should the cost, the revenue cost of performing a diagnosis be? What should the capital cost of actually buying the equipment be? Right? Cost can become a technical target in these things. How much should our consumables cost? When we go and talk to our customers, who is it that can actually approve those purchases? What you typically find in many organizations is buying revenue equipment, buying spare parts is devolved down through the organization. Buying large capital equipment, that's usually an approval process at a much higher level, sometimes involving a committee, which means the whole thing takes a lot longer. And if it's going to take us a long time, we need to know that, because we need to keep ourselves and our project alive while they make up their minds. Basic, simple information, like what's the most money we could ever make if all the hospitals that there were bought all of their stuff from us? What's the most we could ever make? Because what that gives us is a ceiling, really, on how much money we should spend on the development, unless we wanted to take 150 years to get our payback period. Right? Can we compare that with a kind of likely cost of the whole development? Do we have a feel here for whether we're spending 50,000, 500,000, 5 million on the whole thing? Yeah. In other words, how long might it take us to actually break even? Ergonomics, human factors. What kind of people are going to use our technology? Right? We've got lots of clever people with PhDs developing it. Does that mean that you have to have a PhD to use it? Right? Do we need to write very clear instructions? What kind of interface do we use? Are the people using this going to have safety equipment on? Are they going to be wearing gloves, which means we've got to make the knobs a certain size? There's quite a lot of research going on into why it is that people can see certain colors. We tend to have red and green as safety indicators, don't we? Red lights and green lights. It's really stupid, because the most common form of color blindness is actually red-green color blindness. So there's issues around there about usability. There's also issues around there about making the thing robust enough for day-to-day life. What happens if they drop it? What happens if they spill coffee on it? What happens if they leave it plugged in during an electrical storm? Right? What happens if they put it near a patient with a pacemaker? Right? All these things become, if you like, technical targets. Oops. Given in mind all those things we're going to have to do we actually have the right people? Right? What do we need? Do we need development chemists, radiochemists, medical testing specialists, medical purchasing specialists, oncologists? Can we either employ them? Can we work with them? Have we got the right people? And if we have got the right people with technical qualifications, are they the kind of people that could work with us? Are they team players, if you like? Are any of these critical or in short supply? Intellectual property. Intellectual property is one of the great project killers. The good thing is that it's usually a quick project killer. Why is intellectual property a project killer? Because it's fairly quick and easy to find whether someone else has got patents, especially in our area. Do those patents stop us developing our product? You'll hear patent attorneys, patent agents say, have you got freedom to operate? In other words, by developing this, will you be infringing someone else's patent? It's actually fairly easy to make that research. There are free search engines like Espasnet. You can put in keywords and see whether anyone is got patents in those areas. And it is generally not terribly expensive to take the results of your keyword search to a patent expert and say, what do you think? If you're at a university, it's very easy because the commercial arm of the university employs patent experts to do just that. If you have freedom to operate, the patent search can still tell you that there are, the competitive state. If you see Siemens with a lot of patents in the area, you know that you're interested and that they're potentially a big competition. You also might want to think about, okay, where would be the applications for this? Is this something we're only going to sell in the UK? Well, we're limiting ourselves because we know one of the things we know about the medical equipment market in the UK is it's only about 10% of the whole world. What other countries are there that we might want to market this to, and what kind of patent protection can they offer us? Are there, in fact, other forms of intellectual property that could help us? Things like secrecy. Right? In Coca-Cola, the recipe for Coke is just kept as a secret. Apparently, in legend, only 2 executives of Coke ever know the exact details of the recipe at one time. Copyright, right? Copyright is the protection that you use for books and creative works, but it's also the way that you protect computer programs. Registered or unregistered design rights. Things like the shape of the Coke bottle is protected. Things like the shape of this computer can be protected. Things like interesting engineering features can be protected. The nice thing about secrecy, copyright, and registered designs is they are very low-cost form of intellectual property. Trademarks. You might have a trademark. In our particular case, you might call your drug by a special name. We might not think that trademarks, things like the Coke label, the old BP shield, we might not think those are terribly important in technology companies. But then you have a look at the proper chemical formulation or the proper chemical name for something like Viagra or aspirin, right? And then see how important you think a trademark might be. Again, the nice thing about trademarks is they're comparatively inexpensive. We're talking hundreds, if not thousands of pounds. Plant breeders' rights, that's a tree. Plant breeders' rights are an interesting form of IP, utterly obscure for years and years and years, typically used to protect someone who's developed a new grape variety. Why have they become important for people like us? The word is algae. Algae have the almost unique characteristic of being able to absorb CO2 from the atmosphere and convert it into sugars or fuels. That's a very interesting property. People are actually putting tanks of algae onto the tailpipes, as it were, of power stations in the United States. Right? Great big swimming pools of green slime. That's great. How do you protect it? It turns out that most algae isn't biological, it's not patentable. Most algae is actually a plant. All the IP experts, if you ever meet an IP expert, ask them about plant breeders' rights, and they'll all kind of pale because it's something they've not actually got used to, and they're going to have to. And patents as well, okay? There's an awful lot of stuff talked about patents. There's lots and lots of stuff talked about patents. But basically, what do you need to know about patents? broadly, the thing that you need to know is that you need to get advice. The general rule about patents is there hardly are any general rules. Can I patent this? Is a very specific question, and the answer to that very specific question is almost always go and ask a patent expert. Right? There are some general rules, right? Patents do cost a lot of money in most countries. Patents last for a finite amount of time in most countries, 20 years, something like that. All the patent gives you is the ability to sue someone who has infringed your patent. But the only real general rule, the only really important one, the one you absolutely have to know, is the one in big letters, which is you can't get a patent for something that's already in the public domain. So for academic researchers, if you think you have discovered something commercially exciting that you might want to patent, you must patent before you publish. You can't go to the conference and tell people about it. You can't publish it in a paper. You can't give a talk at a conference. You can't give a poster at a conference. You have to be actually quite careful about even discussing it in front of people. You can't let it out into the public domain. Right? When you go and see your patent attorney about your invention, the first thing that they will ask you to do, and you will ask them to do, is to sign a secrecy agreement, because that doesn't count as disclosure. If you discuss the salient points under a secrecy agreement, sometimes called a confidentiality or a non-disclosure agreement, that's okay. Right? Apart from that, you mustn't publish it. If you think you've got a commercial invention, you have to get at least the patent application off first. And applying for the patent in the first stage isn't terribly expensive. It only becomes expensive and complicated a few years down the road. So you have to know about your patent and intellectual property situation. You then have to know about the actual outline of the project. Can we draw a sensible and realistic flowchart of the whole project? And does that flowchart look complicated, or does it look simple? Can we estimate how long the whole thing is going to take? Because that tells us how much money we need. Right? And do we know where in that flowchart are the real potential project killers, the things that would cause us to stop the project? Like, it's just going to take too long. It's a medical device. It's going to take 5 years for approval. We haven't got enough money to stay alive for 5 years. We can produce a benefit, but it's not clear who's going to pay for it. We've got a great invention, but trouble is we're in competition with Microsoft or BASF or Novartis. And we've got 5 people working on it, and they've got 200 people working on it. Someone else has published it, and we can't patent. That's a really annoying one. Some altruistic person has published it, and we can't patent it. We've got a potential product, but that's great. We're going to have to form relationships with a large customer. That's going to take time. Can we even identify the right person to talk to? Is there a long lead time? Right. So one of the problems is, can we actually keep our project alive for long enough to reach fruition? So what we've done there is thought about my little list of what should be in a feasibility study. And the nice thing about this is basically every feasibility study should be similar, because you should always address those issues. There will be some variation because you're talking about different types of invention. You might be talking about chemical products and processes. You might be talking about medical products. You might be talking about a new kind of fuel. But what you will find is that these issues are pretty generic. And I should know because I've done about 50 of these. In fact, one of the things I have done is actually, if you like, helped myself to produce these things, because I do get asked to do them. I've produced a template which you can use for doing these things. So it always has a discussion about the commercial potential, the benefits, the competitors, the intellectual property. It's there in the template, and I have to write something about it. And you can see on the right-hand side the way I like to set it out, which is on the left is the actual issue, and on the right-hand side is a discussion. Remember I said this should be a discussion document. We should be answering the so what question, as well as answering the, well, what's happening out in the world question. And you can see I have a generic contents page, which kind of changes as I put in new things, but I always discuss markets, competition, user benefits, human factors, development complexity. I always do that because I know I'm always going to have to do that. And what do we get from that? Oh, and I should also say that that template is available. You can download it off my website. What should we be looking for from a feasibility study? We should be looking for one of two things. We should either be looking for really, really clear reasons why we're not going to do it. Right? We looked at this quite thoroughly, and we reckoned that we would be possibly illegal, possibly in competition with Microsoft, possibly something much more prosaic. I remember helping a company in Central Europe look at the UK market for plumbing equipment, and the killer factor was they were building everything in millimeters, and of course in Britain at that time at least half of the pipe work was in inches. To make things really annoying, anything that had a thread on was in millimeters, but any joint with a compression fitting was in inches. And the company, and that's a pretty clear reason why they couldn't do it, but they knew exactly, and they knew that that situation was likely to change, right? Please let us know when that changes, because that's the only factor stopping us entering the market, right? So it's actually very useful to know the reasons why you might not do the project, okay? So very clear reasons not to do it. If, on the other hand, you've gone through 8, 9, 10 areas, and it seems to have passed all those 8, 9, 10 areas, how does that make you feel about the project? Right? Does it make you feel a lot more confident? You could go on Dragon's Den and pitch for the help, couldn't you? Right? Because you've been pretty thorough about it. So what you should get is, if it works, as a recommendation. But of those 8, 9, or 10 areas, is it really likely that all 10 will be perfect? Or will you actually be in a situation where 8 areas are very good and 2 are causes for complaint, 2 are causes for worry? That in itself is actually a good and useful finding. When you do a development project, life gets very complicated very quickly. And having in the back of your head, these are the 2 things I really need to worry about, is actually a very good idea. It's a key output of the feasibility study process. And in that, I think I will finish there, and thanks for your attention.